I have said, and I'll continue to say, the only conspiracy is that humans were more advanced prior to now. That is the only thing. Not every other conspiracy just adds to that core thesis, which is they, meaning the people who run the world, these various families and groups, want you to believe that this is the best it's ever been. Yeah, you go to work, you pay for your latte, you pay for your rent, you get one vacation a year. That's the best it's ever been. We're as advanced as it gets. It's a psyop. It's a lie, right? It's based purely on this idea of human value comes from efficiency, right? That's just a lie. Like that's just a flat out lie that everybody has just been bought into because if you strangle the majority of the population and don't allow money to move around freely, then people are just going to basically be struggling for money all day long. And then you lie to them, oh, this is the most advanced ever. Look at your iPhone. Look at Netflix. Like everything's great. It's like, and meanwhile they're depressed and struggling, and they're not able to support their families, and they're taking out second jobs, and no one that's young can afford a house, right? But they keep lying to you and saying, no, this is the most advanced we're ever going to be. And look, we're going to have rockets soon, and soon we're going to have robots. And it's like, yeah, but then if you actually go back and you study history, you realize that like, no, at one point in time, human beings were much more in tune with spirituality, much more in tune with higher levels of consciousness. Start looking at the buildings in every single country, in every country in the world, like literally, the buildings look exactly the same. Geometric, aligned with the sun, aligned with the stars, perfect acoustics, resonance. Clearly, this was a society with a different hierarchy, meaning your efficiency of making money wasn't what valued you and your opinions. It was your ability to create, to make something that people love, that people cherish, and the understanding of human beings. Now we're in this really cool period where human capital about efficiency is radically changing because of AI. So we're going to enter this period where everyone's going to be lost. What do we do to be valuable, right? It's all a psyop. You're already valuable. You're a human being, right? So it's like now with AI, I think we go back to the kind of a mix of the old world of these beautiful buildings and kind of building things for the glory of society. In ancient Rome, you would build the temple for the town, and you put your name on it because you do it for the good of the community. That's not how we are anymore because everything's so scarce. So when resources aren't more scarce and humans aren't relying on efficiency for their value, I think we actually go into the most advanced period ever because we blend hyper consciousness, spirituality with super technologically advanced, insane alien technology, if you will. And you bring those two together, I think that we could have an incredible world.
Man, these are the same kind of things that I try to say to people, and they look at me like I have 42 heads, right? I call this
Yeah, me
system like
too.
sophisticated slavery is what the
Yeah,
term that
that's
I've
good.
coined. And
Yeah.
like I have a lot of conviction in what you're saying here and the beliefs behind it. So then where I go and where I get stuck is how did they successfully pull the wool over our eyes to make this whole thing happen? Because it had to happen at a point, right? And so what was the
Yeah.
catalyst for that change, do you think?
Well, I mean, there's a reason there's a rare book market, right? There's a
Mm,
reason. There's a reason that you have to go into a rare bookstore in, Beverly Hills and Palm Beach for these affluent areas, and there's Bibles for $350,000. Why? Because they reprinted all the books after the World War II. That's why. So if you really look at it, I like to say what we're battling is not money. It's not rich and poor. It's not left and right. It's the protocols of our great grandparents, affirmed by our grandparents, accepted by our parents. That's the battle. So the way that they were able to psyop us is really easy. They reprinted the books. They created centralization and globalization. And then I find it funny that Ghislaine Maxwell's father happened to own the textbook company for all American students of the last 20 years.
that's
So my
horrifying.
textbook was written by people that aligned with them. So it's pretty easy, right? If you control the flow of information, it's not hard. And if you keep everybody in a perpetual cycle of busyness, right? I always say, everyone's so busy. What's your business? I'm so busy, my busyness. Like everyone's working on their busyness all the time. If you get people into this mindset, they're just going to completely separate from their actual purpose and their actual passions and their hobbies. And then you tell them, oh, well, AI's coming, you don't have to work. And then suddenly they're like, well, I have no value if I don't work. It's like, no. Remember when you were 6 years old and you would draw and do Legos and, play the piano? Like, that's what we're going to do.
I think it's really hard for most people to grasp how easy it is to manipulate someone, right? And so
Super easy.
I think social media in my career taught me this firsthand because I saw it on a micro scale how you could push little levers and it would change human behavior, thoughts, beliefs, actions, etc. But when you can achieve that through something as high leverage as media and now social media, like it is insane how quickly you can achieve a thought system. And if you own like the mechanism to perception, you essentially own reality. So for all these people
Yep.
who say like, "Oh, you wear a tinfoil hat, you're so crazy," it's like you don't understand how easy this actually would be to pull off.
Yeah, it's super easy. I mean, like, I had a conversation recently with a friend of mine, and he was talking. We were talking about alchemy and spells and wizards and all that stuff. And then I kind of like mentioned to him the various psyops that he's fallen for over the last 5 years, which were many. I said, well, those are spells and that's alchemy. And they got you to see the world through their perspective. And when you saw it through their perspective, they force fed you everything. And that's kind of how I saw it, is like, I'm always looking at like, why does somebody want me to think something?
Me
Who does
too.
it benefit? And if you don't think that, you're just serving a master that you don't even know. And it's like, I think that people don't question things because you don't want to be a conspiracy theorist. CIA invented that term after the Kennedy assassination. Like,
Is that
learn
true?
your history. Yeah, it's true. They created
Okay,
the
because
term.
well, then
Created the
Google
term.
changed some shit because I said that on a previous episode and then I
They're
fact
always
checked
doing that.
myself and Google said that that's not true.
Google fact checked everything in for many years that it was not true. So yeah, I stopped honestly relying on a lot of that stuff. When I saw them change the definition of words in real time in 2020, and I opened up my dictionary from 2005 and saw a different definition functionally for multiple words, I was like, well, they're just going to change it. Like,
So,
they could do
two
that.
questions off of this. So, I'll start with an easier one. So then, what do you use as your beacon of truth? If you're saying you can't trust anything, like how do you even choose what to consume and dictate how you see, think, and believe?
I try to consume as little as possible. I try to create as much as possible. I
Okay,
try to get my information from myself, from being in tune with my emotions, my intuition, collecting context around both the internet and real life, reading books and making my own parallels, right? Not allowing someone to tell me how something relates to this. I can figure out how it relates if I can hold both of these pieces of knowledge, right? So my job essentially is to get the context, learn the things, and then draw the parallels. And
love that.
I'll be honest, like that's real philosophy. Real philosophy is not in a book. Anybody who tells you they're a philosopher and they start citing philosophers, nah, you're the philosopher. That's how it works, right? So
Love that.
you have to just get the context, and then you'll have this. Some people call it God, some people call it, the universe, whatever it is. It's your higher self, whatever it is. You'll get the intuition to be able to draw parallels between these two different thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's on us too, like if you believe this is true, to speak it with conviction because it is scary for most people, but the more people that do it and say it out loud and say so from a point of merit, right? I think one of the most effective things that I've seen is that I took a long time before I talked about this stuff with people to build
Yep.
trust. Right. And so
Yep.
like there like I don't really bring this stuff up with people until I reach a point where I'm like, they know I'm not insane. Right. And then I will say, here we go. Here's why you're going to think I'm insane. And I think it's really important for more people who have built that kind of leverage with people on a social standpoint to open up, have these conversations. And also, like Hunter, obviously you're really well spoken. So not everyone will be as good as Hunter at saying this, but you got to try it to then
Yeah,
actually become good at saying it in the first place. So
for sure.
how do you wake someone up to this whole world, because there's so many people that are like 10 layers away from even seeing
Yeah.
this kind of things. Like there's a lot of people who have already clicked away, think we're crazy, but
Yeah.
how do you bridge that?
So I think it comes down to a simple concept, which is you are not your ideas. And this is really important. And this is a big problem with our society, is that people self-identify with ideas. And these ideas might not be their own. They could be other people's ideas. And they identify to the point where it crafts their whole worldview. And then anytime information comes that crosses that worldview that doesn't work, they'll either reject it, or they'll have an emotional outburst, or they'll ignore it. I always tell people, I don't know anything. I'm going to change my mind. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm actively in the pursuit of trying to figure it out. And if I say one thing and I'm wrong, okay, I'm wrong. I'm learning. Like when in society has it been like, oh, you said this 5 years ago, so now you're saying something differently? Like, why do we want a bunch of rigid robots that think the same thing for so long, and they'll literally go and riot for an idea that they don't even think about who it benefits? right? So you first have to tell people you're not your idea. You are a receiver for these ideas. I forget who the artist was. It might have been Bob Dylan, but I might be wrong. There's an artist from, the 60s, 70s era that said that he would stay up late till 3 a.m. every night because that's where the ideas came. And if he wasn't awake, then another artist was, and they would get
Mm,
the melody and they would get the song. Because the secret is that you're not your idea, you're just a receiver. So how do you receive them? You have to be focused on your emotional state. Your emotional state becomes your North Star. Because if you're stressed out, freaked out, you're on a really low frequency. It's going to be super easy for someone to tell you what to do and you're going to do it. But if your emotional state is regulated, if you take care of yourself, your health, your body, your mind, if you live a well-rounded life, your emotional state will be more calm. You'll be able to receive these ideas and then put them into practice.
that's so good, man. And yeah, back to the point of loosely tying into meme coins and how if you have the alignment vehicle in place, messages can spread and they can spread very quickly. And if you think
Yep,
about it, like to basically make us self-governing, like the psyop of creating a high switching cost to your beliefs and ideas was like a perfectly executed psyop. And now if you make it permanent with the advent of the internet, and there's this high social cost with changing your mind, and we have this what we've been drilled into our head where being consistent is good, then you basically are kind of screwed. So it's very difficult for a lot of people to have these conversations.
for sure. It is. And it freaks people out, right? Because people like living in the narrative, right? They like narratives, they like protocols. It keeps them safe, it keeps them comfortable, it keeps things predictable. But you can't just sit in that because then you're just stuck in a loop, right? You're just looping around. And most people are stuck in loops, mental loops, physical loops. They're just looping because they don't want to just stop for a second and take inventory of what's going on and hold space for all the ideas and all the voices in their mind. They only are worshiping at the altar of one mission, which is, I need money, I need this, I need that, I have to be that. It's like, if you live in that, you're going to live in lack. If you live in lack, you will never create abundance.